4:15, so let's go ahead and get started. A couple of things I mentioned a little bit earlier. I pretty much need to be out of here at 5:30. I hope that won't hurt anyone's feelings that we're not going to go later than that. Sometimes we may, sometimes, and depending on the amount of discussion, we may be out of here before that, but 5:30 will be the latest we go this evening. Hopefully you all got the paperwork that I sent out. First of all, I want to thank Dr. Norman for facilitating the meeting last month. Appreciate that. I haven't found out how to be two places at once yet, so. And my wife is very glad of that. She said one of me is plenty, so I don't know how to interpret that necessarily. A question for you. I've been trying to, the last couple of times, type out a little Cliff Notes or synopsis of the agenda items. Is that helpful?
Very much. Yes.
Okay, I'll continue to do that. Hello. No problem. On the agenda that was sent, I would like to add one item to that. We'll just call it District versus Board Committee, and I know this came up last month and was discussed a little bit. When we talk about the pros and cons, whether this should remain a board committee as it is now, or if we want to make it an administrative committee. Is there anyone opposed to adding that to the agenda? Okay. Those of you who are voting members, if you are okay with the agenda as amended, would you raise your hand, please? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you. The group norms and bylaws, those are a virtual, the same except for changing the dates as what we've been using. Did anybody see anything in there that you think needs to be omitted, added, changed, or are we okay with what we've been doing? I'm sure you all read them 7 or 8 times to make sure that you were familiar with them.
Is this the?
That's the 2019-20 United SJSD ground rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looked all right to me.
Look all right? Anybody see anything in there that they find objectionable or have questions about? Okay. If you are in favor of approving the ground rules as presented, would you raise your hand, please? Opposed, same sign. All right, thank you. That was unanimous, Bridget. Okay, calendar discussion. I tried to make it very, very clear by the big draft that I wrote across the calendar you got last time that what I sent you was just a proposal in its very roughest state. You should have gotten 3 documents this time. The 2021 academic calendar, which is basically what I had showed you before. A 2021 academic calendar that has nothing at the bottom. That was submitted by Dr. Lau. And then the 2021 12-month workday calendar. Those of you who are a part of the group last year will remember that the board only adopted a 1-year academic calendar, which is for the current year 1920, but they adopted a 2-year 260 workday calendar, both for 1920 and for 2021. Those, because of the change to the statute in terms of when school could start, we may need to look at the possibility of reopening the 260-day calendar for 2021 because I think it's going to get hard to match spring breakup. So the only thing that is a given that I'm telling you for sure has to happen on this calendar that you were given is that school can start no earlier than August 24th in 2021. That is the absolute earliest by law that we can start it. That was the day I picked to start it on the draft that I gave you. That's not set in stone. It's not even in Play-Doh. We can do whatever we want with that. So there was also some concern. The version of the calendar that I gave you that came from Dr. Lau, you'll be able to notice it because it's got 2 light blue squares in each month, or rectangles. This proposal I thought had come from PDC, but I got some information that maybe that is not correct. So I don't know who other than Dr. Lau had input into this. I just wanted to state that right up front. I'm not tied to this. I'm just passing the information along to you guys. So let me give you the essence of what this recommendation was. For instance, on the 2nd and 16th of September, you see the light blue. Those are early dismissal of students, dismissing students an hour earlier, faculty staying an hour later, and that 2-hour block is designed for professional development. That happens 15 times throughout the calendar. So there's 15 hours of time that would be added on to what would be a normal teacher day. To compensate for that, you'll see the 17th and the 18th of August, which were on the other academic calendar, those went away. So 2 days equals 15 hours. Those 15 hours showed up 1 hour at a time, twice a month. Okay, so that was their thought, that was someone's thought on how to do professional development differently from what we're doing now.
The premise was that this year, the beginning of school with professional development days was too heavy, and so they wanted to spread it out throughout the year, correct?
Okay, and can you give me a little better information about who had input onto this?
I believe it was our PDC committee.
That's my understanding, was it was PDC.
I've spoken with several members that are on that committee, and they said they've never seen that before.
My understanding, because I know Kendra visited with me about it, is that they started working through the information that the PDC committee had, which was too heavily weighted
Right.
with professional development at the beginning of the year.
It's feedback
And that
from the
they also
surveys.
wanted more time embedded into the school year itself for more job embedded time. So that's where, I think that's the information she got from the PDC committee, and so then from there, I think she just started working. I know she visited with me, I know she visited with Marley, I don't know who else she visited with, just to put together an idea of how could you not have as much in the front and embed time into the regular school year. So that's just the first swing at it, is my understanding of what she put together.
Okay.
Did that information come from surveys after PD or something? Was that input that
I
all
think
teachers
that's
gave?
what where the PDC committee got their information
Okay.
from, was from
That's what I assumed.
either comments that those staff members themselves had gotten from their colleagues or from surveys. I'm not 100% sure.
I know that they had been told maybe there would be like half-day PDs instead throughout the year, but they were never told about early outs for students and teachers having to stay an hour late. That part was never discussed,
Okay.
which I think is an important component.
Sure, sure. And again, this is just a suggestion. Like I said, the only thing that's in stone right now is we can't start before August 24th. Everything else is up for grabs, so to speak. PDC has been a concern. I know that I've heard teachers say too, full days and a couple days in a row is too much, so we might want to look at how can that be done differently. This would be one suggestion. Half days would be another possibility. Where I want to start with this, it is my belief, and I think anybody who works with secondaries will say that it's pretty important to have semesters of very close to equivalent length. Eric, is that an accurate statement?
Say that one.
Semesters should be roughly
Yes.
the same number of
If-
days, if possible.
Which I
Okay.
don't know how that's going to be possible.
Well, it isn't mathematically possible to have the semesters the same length unless you end first semester after Christmas break. I mean, it's just mathematically impossible. Unless you want to take no Christmas break at all, which I think that probably would not be a popular. That would not be popular. So can we agree in premise that the end of first semester is going to have to occur after Christmas break? Does anybody think that won't work?
I think that's definitely a mock-up that we'll need to develop.
I've heard a lot of feedback from secondary folks though that are really opposed to that, really
Really?
concerned about that because of finals.
We used to have that kind of schedule, and
I was gonna
it
say,
wasn't
used-
very conducive to coming back after break, having a week of school and taking finals.
Long gap. in
Yeah,
work.
I've only heard from 2 people, but it was people who teach semester-long AP classes, and they say if I've got 71 days here and I've got 93 here, I'm teaching the same class, I can't do that. So that was one thing to look at.
That's a good point. For the semester classes.
Okay, well, so that's not a given then.
It's not a given. My recommendation would be for this group to develop 2 mock-ups, two options of those calendars, or multiple options, with one being after Christmas break or the holiday break, and one being before, and with the differences, I mean, making one an uneven breakup in the semesters and making one even, but that obviously does push us over. That's my recommendation.
Okay,
I guess my question, how is that fair to the students? If I'm gonna have 10 extra days of instruction, and depending on which semester I take the class, I'm just throwing out 10, I don't know that it would be 10.
Does that also affect like our dual credit classes? If we're working with Missouri Western for dual credit, those end
That's
before
what the lawmakers
Christmas?
didn't think about either by
Yeah.
forcing those
Before
things, so we'll have to
Christmas?
work with Missouri Western on those things. Well, not just Missouri Western, anybody who
Right.
offers those.
Okay, so the semester break is something that we'll have to address prior to Christmas, after Christmas. The makeup of PD, what does that look like? Is that safe to say that's a issue that we want to explore more fully?
I'm guessing that would put Hilliard outside area schools on more of a similar schedule with us if everybody's pushing back. Because that would be another thing to consider.
Well, Hilliard Technical Center is a whole nother issue in that.
For semester courses.
But they would, I mean, every district has to push back to the 24th,
Right.
so.
They're working with a lot of
At
different
least,
schedules.
But I think she's saying it depends also where they put their semester breaks
Correct.
in cooperation with ours.
Correct.
So the actual start day of school, I would think, would be something we'll want to discuss. I've already heard some feedback that we don't want to start with a full week, which is fine. If you don't start with a full week, then you're going later.
Yep.
So the start date would be something to,
Let's start with a full week of your PD half day.
some of this time could be varied with semesters depending on the length of Christmas break. Ever since I've been here and ever since I've been alive, I think I remember teachers saying we really like 2 weeks. Do we want to look at how long that semester break is? Or does everybody say, that's pretty much Scott himself said, it's got to be 2 weeks?
I'm willing to put that information out to our staff and ask, to get the feedback from our staff to see what they say. I have a pretty good idea of what the answer's gonna be,
What
but
their
I think
preference
that
is. I think
that
their
preference
preference
should
would
be
be
put
the 2
out,
weeks.
but I think it should be put out to them to give that input.
Okay. In this scenario, how important is a spring break? If we end earlier
I think it's important for
versus,
staff and kids. I think it's important for staff and kids to have mid-semester break
okay,
at that time.
do we look at a week, do we look at less?
I think it depends on how you're going to run summer school and how far that's going to push us into June.
Right.
Good point. So that we don't go into July for summer school. If that means we have to reduce spring break, that's where the reduction would go.
Right.
Okay, so spring break at least worth a discussion topic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see,
Personally,
what
about spring break, if we do it over Easter, and I don't know where Easter falls on here, but if we did something with that, I personally like the idea of like a Monday, the Monday after Easter for families that travel for the holiday. It used to be when I went to school, we did the Friday, we got a Friday and Monday for Easter. Just a thought.
In April of '21, the 4th is Easter Sunday, I believe, April 4th. Okay, what other things are there in here that would give us some
Excuse me.
flexibility? I think we've caught most of them, some length of semester break, or how long the semesters are, what's PD look like, the actual start date. the length of Christmas break and length of spring break. Anything else you can think of that would allow us to flex one way or the other?
We'd be able to extend the school day by like 5 or 10 minutes to make up our time that way. That way we could get more hours in with our kids.
Dr. Manzal, did you hear what
No, I
the
didn't.
question was? If we could have some variation in the calendar based on extending the school day, say 5 or 10 minutes, are we planning to do an hour calendar or a day calendar?
I think we do hours. Double check, I'm 90% certain that we do hours.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Don't we have to turn in hours to Desi now rather than days?
I think they calculate everything off of hours.
So the length of the day?
Is there a possibility, on here you have Christmas break starting on the 21st. Can we push that back 2 days? And then that adds 2 days later in January that then kind of
Yeah.
makes that semester?
Absolutely. I tried to explain without being here, all I did was took everything on the current calendar and moved it 9 days. So, yeah, that can start anytime.
I'm just saying, I mean, then maybe
No,
you
yeah.
add 2 more days to that first semester versus,
So if we were wanting
you'd
to
start
try to
later in
add to
January.
end first semester before Christmas, that would give us 2 more days.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
so-
that would be fine, because that'd be the 21st and the 22nd, that's Monday,
Right, so
Tuesday.
when does Christmas break start? Anybody else see a variable in there that,
I know we already talked about the professional development days, but depending on the route that we go with that, if it's something similar to what we've done currently in the current system, shifting, and I don't know how this would look, but shifting some of those professional development days from first semester to second semester would provide more student contact days in first semester, which would then allow the student, like, to get the balance in the student days. So that's something else we could consider and think about with the professional development as we think about that part of it.
so like?
I don't know how that would look, and I don't know what the district's
Well, we'd
PD
have-
plan and committee would be willing to do there. And when is the most effective time for that professional development, I don't know. That's something for discussion, though.
So we'd have,
I'd say you would still struggle because you're gonna have your testing taking place in the spring, so you'd be losing some of your after Christmas windows for folks that need to have more time to do your state testing as well, so another side of the coin, you know, that you're gonna have to look at, but it will impact that as well.
I think another way to front load your PD and do a full week the first week would be to have PD in the afternoon each day of the first week.
and only a half a day.
Like a half
So you'd
day.
have a half day with kids each day of the first week of school in August, do PD each afternoon. That way you're kind of meeting both needs, of you're not wearing out the kids, breaking them into a more gradual increase of their education. And you're also saving some of those PD days. You can still count them as full days.
so half student day, half PD day the first week of school.
If you're doing a full week.
Another thing somebody suggested to me was that we could potentially do, like in October and March, on the weeks of parent-teacher conferences, we've done we've done 4 days, and because of the extra time with parent-teacher conferences not going on Friday, that those Fridays could be used as days if we wanted to use them there. That would give us 2 days that you could take off at the end. Is that?
But then when would you compensate the extra 7 or 8 hours that teachers have spent in parent-teacher conferences above the length of the regular day?
Are you saying
you
you
could-
would take them off the second semester, so instead of having,
That would only be 1 day per
well, you're right,
semester.
only once it would be only one, yeah, you're right. But that's what you're saying, taking off the fall semester,
Well,
parent-teacher conference
You-
comp
if
day and
you-
putting it at the second semester to
no,
help
if you,
equalize.
especially if we decided we want to try to end the first semester before Christmas, if you went to school on that Friday, that would give you one more student contact day prior to the break, and then you would take it off somewhere in the,
In second semester.
in the
Yeah,
second
okay,
semester.
that's what I meant.
I don't think that would be very popular with teachers. I mean, those days are long
oh
and
yeah.
hard, and it would be hard to explain why they weren't getting
Yeah.
that Friday anymore.
That's true. people will have to make a decision though on like what is the most important. Is it most important to stop school, to stop the first semester before? Or is it like that, I mean, that's gonna be the challenge and the question.
What if we did conferences all day that Friday
Elementary versus
instead of
secondary.
at night?
Absolutely.
We used to do that several years ago.
Say that again?
What if we did conferences all day on Friday instead of doing them at 2 nights?
What would that look like for our parents?
It would be a better opportunity for some of our parents because
They
they
don't-
work nights.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, we're doing a great job of thinking of all the options, so now
Yeah.
we're just gonna have to put it
Too
all
many
But
together.
if you
Yeah.
did parent-teacher
No, that's-
conferences,
no, this
that
is
day
great.
you
This
counted
is
as
good
a-
brainstorming.
Not a student
He's trying to
contact.
count it as a student day.
Yeah.
But if you have conferences all that day, you can't count as student day, so you've just
It's,
negated,
taking another-
you've just negated what you were trying to
That's
do.
true.
Yeah.
Are we trying to count it as a student day?
No, these are
Trying to
great
make
suggestions, so
conferences
what else can you
more
think of?
relevant
Yeah.
for people.
I see what you mean.
Used to have conferences in the afternoons, like we'd have a half a day of student contact, and then we would have conferences in the afternoon and like one evening, or maybe 2 evenings and 1 afternoon.
But you could do
That's
it
been several years
to
ago.
where it just goes till 5 versus going
Right.
so late and then you don't have to take off as much time.
Right.
Yeah, they could be played with in a way that would work, for sure.
With these ideas, these multiple things that we've heard about, like using the half day and then like the half day PD in the afternoon and half day student contact in the morning, if we're going by hours, will that, I mean, it still wouldn't be considered a full day?
It doesn't count as a full day,
No.
it counts as exact hours.
Yeah, that's what I thought, so,
It's
so that
actually-
doesn't,
it's
so that doesn't
actually-
actually meet like the idea of getting the full day. So that just popped in my head as we were talking more about that.
For us, but it does for kids.
No, no, it does not count for kids. If we're counting by hours, it'll be specific, it'll be very specific.
I
like
thought
they
as
can
long
only-
as we went till 1 o'clock, then it counted as a full day.
If you're counting by days, there is a point at which you can count it as a full day. If you're logging hours, then it's just the hours that you actually have
And Dusty
contact
now
with.
counts it by hours. We turn in everything by hours.
The days of the day are over.
The days are done.
Could you do a half and half? Could you have an afternoon, let's say from like 4 o'clock until 7, and then the next day, or you could even stagger a day, then you go from 8 to 11? I know Columbia Public Schools did that, and that was with a school with 800 middle school kids. Worked like a charm. Teachers left at 11. And so then it didn't count a day. Parents got 2 different options. I mean, just a thought.
That's what they used to do on the Fridays. We would go to like the morning, noon. So that would give, and like one evening to, like you said, then Friday morning, and then the rest of Friday, teachers were off.
Okay. What other ideas does anybody have?
It's not a popular idea, but there's a Wednesday before Thanksgiving, if we're looking for days.
That is a thing.
It's not popular, you said?
I said it's not a popular, it won't be a popular idea, but if we're looking for days.
Well, I think one of the first things we'll have to decide is when we're ending the
I was
semester.
gonna say the semesters.
And that will drive a lot of it. If we're carrying it over to after Christmas, it probably wouldn't make much of a difference. If we were gonna end it before Christmas, that would be one more instruction day. That would get closer to evening it out. Anything else people can think of? Somebody else mentioned to me, again, this probably wouldn't be, well, I don't know if it'd be popular or not. Usually we've taken a day after Christmas break to do a PD day, like on this calendar, it's January 4th, that maybe make that an instructional day. If that's an instructional day, then you'd end one day sooner. Well, and you could do the same thing with February 19th, I guess, too, as far as that goes. If you wanted to if you found some other vehicle through which to do PD, those could both be instructional days. Anybody else think of anything? Okay, here's where I really need your help. I've been trying to figure out some way to coherently group these all and say, okay, here's a calendar where we'll address different PD options. Here's a calendar where we'll address ending first semester before Christmas. Here's a calendar with first semester ending after Christmas. Does that sound like a viable way to approach this? What are your thoughts on that? I'm having trouble wrapping my mind around how many variations do we have and what do they look like.
I think you get too many and it makes people confused.
Could we just start with one question for the month and find out, do we want to have first semester end before Christmas or not?
Okay, yeah, well, yeah, that's a very good point.
That seems to be the variable that's going to be the most, that's going to have the most impact on the rest of it.
That would impact everything
Yeah.
when we're adding. What do you guys think? Is that a good place to start? Talk to your groups and say, when should first semester end, before or after Christmas? It is going to be, and I know you guys already do this, but it's going to be critical with as many questions as we have about calendars that you really push this stuff out to your membership so that they have a good idea about what we're talking about. And you guys would probably think it was really odd if I don't tell you this at least twice like I always do. Remember, again, we're an advisory committee. We're not a decision-making committee. We'll make a recommendation to the meet and confer teams. The meet and confer teams really aren't even decision makers. The board is the decision maker. Typically, the board will approve what comes through meet and confer, but remember that those 7 people are the ones that make the decisions about this, okay? I just feel like I need to tell you that every time because it's reality.
And it'll help because Bridget's going to be sending out, like she did, I think, at the last meeting and last year, out to the whole staff, kind of a brief synopsis of the minutes. So if they see that you were talking about calendar and they don't get anything from you, we're not trying to create issues for you. I'm just saying if they get it and you're like, hey, our association people were supposed to ask us and you don't, that may create some issues for you. So I'm sure you'll communicate it, but just know that if you don't, they're going to have a heads up coming their way anyhow.
Bridget, what % did you say looked at last time's recap?
It was almost 42%.
Okay, which is, I mean, I wish it was 99%, but.
It's pretty good for emails and pretty similar to what the board recap is.
And I think if we can train people to understand that, hey, all the important stuff's going to be in there, all you got to do is click on that email and open it up, and they'll have a synopsis of the meeting. That'll be good for getting the information out there. All right.
For the first time you said it, that's a really good percentage. You
It's
said it in the
since-
spring,
since
but it
it
was
was
first new this year.
Oh, yeah, for the first one of the year, yeah.
Okay, so on this topic then of the calendar, if we get this information, push it out, and say, hey, we really need for sure right now your opinions on when should first semester end, then if we get a decision on that, it will kind of frame the rest of the discussion. Is that, everybody okay with that approach?
Can I ask a goofy question related to that?
Absolutely.
Having been an elementary principal, I don't know that semesters really matter as much to elementary folks as it does
No, they
to
don't.
secondary. So are you able to decipher that with the information you get back? Are you going to be, because I don't want you to get, I'll just throw up 500 elementary teachers say, well, we want it to end before Christmas. And then all the secondary folks say, well, no, we want it to end after Christmas, but it's a fewer number of secondary folks. Are you going to be able to decipher that with the information that you get?
I was gonna suggest too, when we did it a few years ago, it was just went out to secondary, because it doesn't make a difference at the elementary level.
And I'm just making sure, because I know it didn't matter to us when I was in elementary. I don't know that it matters as much now. I think it's more of a secondary issue of mine.
But shouldn't they all have a voice?
Well, yeah,
We represent everybody, we don't just represent secondary.
I think that the way that I'm taking that is make sure that our surveys that we send out to our memberships identify not only teacher, but secondary teacher, elementary teacher, so we can break up the data and see like at the high school level, that's what these people are.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you don't represent each other. What Eric said is accurate, but I do think you have to throw a little more weight behind what the secondary folks are gonna say, because it's those kids and those teachers who it probably impacts their instructional component more because of the end of course exams and all that other stuff that you have to do that elementary is lucky enough not to have to do. They have their own issues they get to
You
do,
might
so.
even want to do elementary, middle school, high school, because who's impacted is the high school in the course exams.
Okay, any other comments on the calendars before we move on?
The only other thing I saw was on the PDC one, which I know is a draft, one of the work days at the beginning of the year was taken out.
They took 2 of them off. Well, one work day and one PD day came off. And that was to make up for the 15 hours of staying late.
But that would take actual work time away from teachers.
Right. Yeah, and there again, I think, well, since I don't know exactly who came up with this, I can't say. But I think what they were trying to do was just to say we added 2 days and so we took 2 days away. But it wouldn't necessarily have to be work days, it could be PD.
I don't think they picked it was one or the other. I just think they picked 2 days
Right.
Yeah.
and said, how do you divide
Yeah,
it?
they just took the first 2 off of the calendar.
Dr. Kraus,
Yes.
one of the things that, having been on this group for several years, was if it goes to 3 days before school, building day, the very first day, building stuff, district stuff the second day, work day the third day. So it's just very, I thought that was a good plan to have the first day be the building day. And it's all building directed, everybody's in the building for the meetings.
As long as everybody's in the building that day.
Yes.
It would
That was the
almost,
key.
I would almost say the third day would be your building day, because otherwise we're bringing people who aren't normally in the building on Wednesday and then they don't come to work
But we
Thursday and
adjusted
Friday.
their schedule to where they were there that first day.
Yeah. Sometimes it's awkward
And
if
then
we're
they had
all in the
other
building
days off.
together and we have to set hi
You don't
officially.
even know who they are, yeah.
Yeah.
All learning teachers.
Anything else on the calendar?
Dr. Kraus, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, that there are 6 built-in weather days on there as well?
Well, I need to double check with that. I think the 164 days, if we use 6 snow days, well, first of all, let me back up one more. The last few years, there have been 169 student contact days. From having talked with the board members that I meet with, they're very interested in getting that 170th day of student contact back in there. If there are 170 student contact days and 164 days meets our minimum number of hours, then in essence you have 6 built-in snow days.
Okay.
The last few years, we've actually only had 169 student contact hours, or student contact days, and so then we really, in essence, only had 5. But yes, in a scenario where there's 170 contact days, there would be 6 built in before you would have to start making them up to make sure you had the minimum hours.
All right, thank you.
With the 169.
I'm
So
sorry.
I'm just trying to make sure I got this right. With the 169, it's 6 days.
170.
70
70
makes it 6 days.
169 would be 5.
Got it.
And not to frustrate people, I'll just tell you, I think at some point that has to be discussed as well. Because I don't, if you're gonna say, we really want kids to be in 169 or 170 days, but then we're going to not have them show up 6 instructional days, we're not blowing the top off of stuff academically, folks, so we gotta figure out how we can do some of those things. And more time sometimes is beneficial.
One of the questions on my preliminary survey, not knowing all of these things that came up yet, that I had already sent out to my membership, regarded the number of days that are, if we were to increase student contact days, which has popped up here and there, which is why I put it on the survey, would that increase our contract days as well? Or would one of those days come out of one of the PD days or one of the other days throughout the year?
That could be
Open for discussion.
open for discussion.
Because you could not have built-in snow days like most districts don't anymore, and that would give you 6 student contact days, wouldn't it,
No.
with the snow days?
No, you already have the days, they're saying.
It's just whether you count.
It's just
Well, it's
whether,
whether you think the minimum number of hours is enough for students or not.
All right, moving back to the agenda, I want to skip the construct list of topics for just a second. Training and deadlines. I believe all of the certified staff have completed their trainings. If you have classified staff members in your group, if you would just make a blanket plea to say, hey, if you haven't finished your compliance training and signed off on the handbooks, please do that. People are already almost 3 weeks late on that. And if you hear of anybody that's having problems logging in or whatever it is, just have them call our office. We can help them with that real easily, but we do those things because we feel like it's important. If somebody doesn't have that information, we're already almost a month into school, that's not good for them and it's not good for kids. So please make a plea to your folks to, if they haven't done that, to get after that. Hilliard Technical Center teacher salary schedule is on there. I put that as an info only. Did I send you guys any documents on that? Okay, good.
You did last time, didn't you?
I had
Or was it just
intended
the
not
other
to,
time?
and the reason being, it only affects 4 people, and those people could potentially have been individually identifiable, and I want to stay away from that. Let me just explain to you the essence of it, and this is just an information only. I don't think it's appropriate for our group, but I want you to be aware if somebody asks questions. There's a state statute number 168.110 that says that a district is supposed to have one salary schedule applicable to all teachers. We currently have 2 salary schedules. We've got at Hilliard, we've got where everybody else is. Since the adult programs at Hilliard have been peeled off and gone to Metropolitan Community College, we now only have 4 teachers that are on the Hilliard Technical Center schedule. All 4 of those individuals have 201-day contracts, which I'm guessing, I don't know this for a fact, this happened long before I got here, which I'm guessing is why that salary schedule was developed in the first place, because some of those programs are longer than the regular teaching year. So what, I went and I met individually with those 4 folks. What I'm going to ask the board to do on Monday, and this has gone through the finance committee already, and I'm just giving you guys the information. I took their current salary that they earned for 201 days, I divided that by 201, multiplied it by 100, and that gives me a daily rate. I multiplied that by 181, which would then give them the number of days to fit on the regular teacher's schedule. I found the 2 steps that fell between, gave them the higher of the 2, none of them matched up exactly. And then those folks will get a 181 contract for that amount, plus 20 times their daily rate as a supplemental contract. So they will have the same number of contracted days, it'll just come in 2 contracts. That's very similar to what we do now with counselors. For instance, most of them have an extended contract. They're on the teacher's schedule, they get a contract for the 181, and then they get their daily rate times however many extra days they work as a supplemental contract. All 4 of those teachers will gain a little bit of money this year because it didn't match up with the steps exactly. So nobody will lose money, nobody will lose days, everybody's on one salary schedule, we're in compliance with the law. So in my world, that's a win-win. Does anybody have any questions about that? I never see any problem with that.
It doesn't appear to be.
Okay, and like I said, I went and visited with each of them individually, and when I explained to them what and why, they were fine with it. I'm assuming none of you teacher reps have heard anything from them. If they were upset, I imagine they would have contacted somebody. Okay. Let's skip back up now to the construct a list of topics to be discussed. I mean, obviously, we've got calendar. I'm assuming there's a little bit of interest in salary. What other big item topics do we want to talk about throughout the course of the year? And this will, maybe we'll just leave it with those 2 and we'll get an easy schedule. Anybody have a list made somewhere? Or maybe what we need to do, I've planted the seed, and then you think about that as the meeting goes along, and we'll come back to
I was
this.
gonna say, the only thing that I've gotten from my work group is just more relevant professional development for my work group, because the professional developments that are not,
So PD relevant to individual groups?
yeah.
I am embarrassed to say so, but I am not real familiar with what happens at the Engage Summit. Is there any of that at the Engage Summit that goes like to social workers or nurses, or is it all more educator oriented?
The majority are educator oriented, or if it is mental health, it's usually us presenting it versus somebody coming and presenting that we would be able to access.
Okay.
I mean, we can go see each other, but
You can do that any day.
yeah.
Okay.
And oftentimes they become full because teachers want something different than their educator stuff, which I understand too, but.
Okay. Another thing I should know that I don't, is that a contract day for our classified stuff? Do you guys go to the Engage Summit to the PD?
Yes.
I do not.
Paras do.
Paras do? Okay. Did you feel like there was stuff applicable to you at the Engage Summit? Or do you remember?
I ended up, we had students that were doing the coffee shop, and so I kind of supervised
Oh.
them while
So you were working.
I just wasn't at the.
Okay. But no, that's a good point, Kelly. And obviously, if PD is going to be meaningful, it's got to be relevant. So.
And we were lucky enough, the first Engage Summit that actually took place, we were able to go to a different, the nurses and the social workers were able to go to a different professional development that was only offered at that time. And then the second one, of course, didn't come to fruition, so it hasn't actually taken place, but, and the nurses don't go to Engage Summit, I don't think.
They do have, I'm doing the catalog, that's the only reason I know this, but, so on the catalog, they do have sessions for nurses.
So are they gonna be required to go this time?
I don't know what's required and what's not.
Right.
I haven't heard this.
I
can
thought
find
they
out.
were on a 181 calendar, just like the teachers. But
They
maybe I'm-
are there that day, but they typically have their own professional development,
Okay.
whereas we and counselors.
Yeah, well, that'd be something I need to make sure I visit with Maria about and see if there's relevant things for them. I hope they will just go to the Engage Summit. Check on that. Other big topics. And we can add these as the year goes on. I just kind of wanted to have an idea about what you guys want to.
Put my thinking cap on.
Okay. All right, well, let's come back to that. PTO versus EL or employee leave. This I know is not going to be a one meeting discussion. It'll probably be like 6, 7, 8, 12, who knows. The way I'm defining PTO and EL is this kind of help frame our discussions. PTO means I have X amount of days and I can use them for whatever, whenever I want, no restrictions, no exclusions, okay? And I think that's kind of a popular model in the business world. I think it's fairly common there. Employee leave, you all know, as we define it, you get a certain number of days. 2 can be personal leave, which you can use for anything, anytime, and the others are to fit into the categories that we have, whether it's sick leave, doctor appointment, wedding, funeral, graduation, whatever. Just something to think about. I think, and this happened just slightly before I came, but my understanding of the reason for the employee leave buyback being instituted was to be an encouragement or an incentive for people to come to work regularly, save their days, so at the end, when you retire, you've got this nice lump sum buyback. Is that the essence of it? Okay. Doesn't seem to be working. We had 28,435 absences recorded last year. That's a lot. Okay, we have roughly 1,800 employees. That number of absences was higher than the year previous when we had almost 100 more employees. So not only are we not going down, our total per per individual rate of absenteeism has increased. Okay, maybe last year was an especially bad year, I don't know, in terms of flu. Maybe we had more maternity leaves than usual, maybe we had more accidents, I don't know. There's lots of factors that play into that. But when you split those absences up over 1,800 people, one person really doesn't have a huge effect. But multiple people, you know, somebody can take up to 12 weeks off for maternity leave. Well, that's 60 days that get put into that 28,000. That's a lot, and they probably would have missed some other days too. So the thought being, and people have been asking since I got here, and I'm guessing before I got here, let us just have PTO. We'd be gone when we want, we don't have to explain it, we're just gone. The districts that have done that, and there are quite a few have gone to PTO. I'd say it's probably about a 50-50 split now. That's just a guess. But districts who have done that see their absenteeism skyrocket. It goes even higher. So the question is, in my mind, can we afford to do that with an employee attendance rate like we already have? Or do you guys think if we switched to PTO, it wouldn't affect it any? Just give me some general thoughts. Or if we went to PTO, would it be fair to say, well, since you can be gone anytime for anything, we're going to give you less days per year?
I think it's very confusing the way it is right now, because people don't understand what, it's the same days, what's the difference? Like, a bunch of people just mark sick day and go on.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's certainly a possibility. What else?
I would guess that people who are missing a lot of work for something other than surgeries or maternity leaves are going to miss a lot of work regardless. Because they're not going to probably be as honest about why they're missing anyway.
That's what happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think you're always going to have abusers. No matter what you do, you're going to have those. And I'm going to take up for our coaches right now. We've got a group of coaches that are at a conference, you know, and it's their days to use. And so they're given the choice. They can use their personal days or be docked, you know, because we know they can't use their sick days because they're at the conference.
If they are classified staff.
Correct, but a lot of ours, we've got several that are not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes that our non-classified staff, it almost seems like they're penalized at times, you know, even though I know that they're not, but you just look at it that way. You know, the certified staff were able to take these days, the non-certified coaches had to choose, is it a personal day or do I get docked for the day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is a recurring theme, and I just want to tell you, Angie, there's no malice toward classified
Right.
people coaching, but until the Fair Labor Standards Act changes, we would be out of compliance with the law
Yeah, and I
if
understand that,
we
yeah.
didn't do it that
Yeah,
way.
and I know that they took the position knowing that, you know, but I think that if it's a PTO day and it's their day to use, then they have that opportunity
Yeah.
to say, hey, I'm not gonna get docked this day,
Right, that's
you
true,
know.
that would
I'm-
work that way.
Yes.
If these coaches who are classified staff are going to a conference regarding the sport and the school?
It's their supplemental job
It's their
versus their regular job.
Mm-hmm. We checked with several attorneys on this
Interesting.
area.
I was gonna
and
say, because they're
since
still working,
They're working their supplemental duty though, which is to be paid by their supplemental contract. So we can't pay them their regular wages. Let's say they're a para, we can't pay them their para wages for doing coaching activities.
Okay.
That's where we
If they're
get.
if they're
If they're
non-certified.
non-certified. Yeah, and believe me, we've researched this really closely to make sure that we're following the
tricky
law.
spots in the law. Okay.
Yep. Other general thoughts about PTO versus EL?
I'm absolutely interested in the discussion on this and looking at a few different opportunities with this. In the past, when we did go to a PTO, Do you recall that?
Has it ever actually happened? I know it
Well,
was discussed.
it happened in name,
Yeah, but
but
that doesn't say
after
exactly
the
the
discussion and we all were agreed upon going to the PTO, it was then all the restrictions were added back in, personal days, 2 personal days, 1 personal day, could be like you use it or lose it, and then we had, the rest of them were sick days, so it didn't become a PTO. It was only PTO in the name, and that's when eventually, I don't know if it was you that changed it back or if it was immediately prior to you, but the name changed from PTO back to employee leave, because it wasn't PTO.
Right.
Even though that's the way it was presented to our group, whenever we originally had gone to that.
Yeah. I can plead innocence for the restrictions coming in. I was the one who changed the name because
That makes sense, because it didn't make sense, because
misleading.
it wasn't, yeah.
People said it's PTO, but you've got these restrictions, and that's why we changed it to back to employee leave. But yeah, I understand.
So that's our experience with that thus far, and it did not,
So other than
Did
in
not go
name,
well.
there's never been a true
No.
PTO.
Years ago, we had 10 leave days, 2 personal days. That was it.
how many years ago?
And they were just years,
Years.
lots of years ago.
Okay.
That's when I was on MSTA board. We had 10 and 2, and that was it. And they were leave days, but you also had to have your principal's permission, so you couldn't just put it in ASOP and be gone. You had to put in a form asking for permission to be gone. You didn't have to put a reason why, which was nice, because then people didn't have to make up reasons.
So that's kind of a hybrid too. It sounds more like PTO, but you still needed a supervisor
Correct.
pre-approval, basically.
And those, the difference was, if I recall, those 2 days didn't roll over, right? You had to
Right,
use
I
it.
believe so.
Which the use it or lose it will definitely increase absenteeism
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're
yeah, that
Oh,
doesn't.
Yeah. that
Yeah.
was, yeah.
And those were the bane of my existence. I got rid of those as quickly as I could after I started.
I feel
So-
like you're gonna have the people, there's 2 types of people, one person, one group's gonna use them all no matter what, and other people are gonna save them. I think it matters what you call them.
Yeah.
For those of you in this room, for how many of you is the leave buyback, is that an incentive to, if it's borderline for you,
Yes.
I come to work?
Oh, no, not for if I come to work or not, but when I
I was gonna
retire,
say,
which
Yeah.
is soon.
Well, right, which
So,
is for the reason you come, I mean, so you do come to work, and that is one of the things in your mind, so
I
that
think
does
we've
make
lost a lot
sense.
with loyalty for work anymore, in any kind of capacity.
Yes.
So, it used to be that you stayed with a district for a long time because
Yeah.
you liked working for the district, or whatever it was that kept you in a place for a long period of time, was why we offered the incentive.
How many years have we been doing the employee leave buyback? Is it 2 or 3
I
now?
believe 3.
3 now?
Well,
Okay.
Suspended
It
it.
was
2,
Suspended
because for
one,
1 year
that's
it was
right. 2,
suspended.
okay.
But I think initially started 3 years ago.
I really don't know how, like, I know that you're saying that it doesn't seem to be working, but with all of the other factors that our district has been involved with over the past 3, 4, 5 years, I don't know if 2 years or 2 cycles of that is enough to say that it's not working. There's a lot of other factors that are involved with that. If we didn't have all of the investigations and the turmoil that we were involved in, this may be a very different story, and this may be a very effective tool. I think it's still taking some time to get us to the point where people do want to stay here.
I think it's,
And it's gonna, I mean, we're mending a wound, but the wound is not closed. I mean, we're slowly closing it up, but we're not
and I
there
think
yet.
last year, across the district was a very hard year for a lot of people
Yeah.
because of all of the change. We lost that set of staff members, kids didn't change, but we lost
Yes.
staff.
Yes.
And so that put more on a lot of other things. Schools changed, people closed, people were moved, and, I think employees were unhappy. And I mean, like I come to work sick, but I was a lot more likely to go home and not come to work last year because it was a really hard year for a lot of people.
And taking, I heard it a lot from people, like the fact that career ladder went away. I know this was a while ago, but the buyback thing is just, that's an actual like incentive of like, hey, I do have this possibly waiting for me. Yeah, they took away that one chunk of money that I usually counted on, but this, it's still in the back of your head. It would give me an incentive, and I'm only in year 8. So,
I think a lot of people are also worried that, will it still be there when I retire?
yeah.
It is
Use
very
the
like
days.
long-term, it's really far away. Like with our kids, we would never tell them, like, if you come to school, we'll give you something when you graduate at the end. You know, it's just really, it's very far.
That does really tie right into the trust that it's going to be there. It's a lack of trust for the future in this district. And I that's something, again, that has to be mended, but it's taken time. It's not the reason
requires
it's
money.
quick.
It is a delayed gratification tool,
It is, that's true.
which some people
Yes.
do well with, some don't.
It's the personality, and part of that does tie to people's personalities, absolutely. I got it, I'll spend it. I'll wait for it.
Well, there are two different banks, people who have been here a long time who had more than, what was it, 110, have a grandfather bank. Everybody else can get up to 110. Like, let's say you started with 110 and then you would have gotten 14 at the start of the year, would have put you at 124. At the end of this year, let's say you use 4, you're at 120. 10 of those will get bought back automatically at the end of the year. And then the other 110, let's say it was your retirement year, you would get 110 times whatever your rate was based on your years of experience here. So somebody who's been here, I think it's 25 years or more, that has the full in their bank, basically walks away with a check for $12,000, which is a nice parting gift.
Absolutely.
And you kind of have to be realistic in that people early in their careers, they're having babies, they're raising kids, kids are sick, you're home with sick kids, you know, all that goes on. And then you finally come to a time in your career when you're kind of past that, and then you can start baking those days. And so the closer you get to retirement, the more that's going to mean to you. But someone who's in their 5th year, maybe to 10th or 15th year, I don't know, you know, they're not thinking about that. They're surviving, raising a family and sick kids, and, you know, I mean, it's just, that's just life. And so, you know, that's why sometimes you see as people get towards the end. And then the other thing that happens is at the end of your career, you have sick parents. And so you start that cycle all over again where you're using days because it's your, but I mean, you know, it's just life. And so it's either an incentive for people or it isn't. And I agree with you, you're gonna have a group that no matter what you do, they're gonna be gone. And then you're gonna have a group that's not going to do that, and that's what happens now. And so do we say to that group that's not abusing it, let's have a PTO day so you can take it when you want, you don't have to lie. Or some people won't take it because they won't lie. You know, do we treat them like professionals? I mean, that's just a thought process, you know, because the ones that are gonna abuse it are gonna use it whether it's called PTO or employees.
Dr. Krause, I wrote a book on this topic, so if you'd like to read it, I'll share it with you.
I'm still working on learning to read, but okay.
Is that your dissertation?
It's my dissertation topic.
So what gems of wisdom can you impart to us?
Yes, let a couple spill from your mouth this. From the research, the more days we all have, the more we use. So that was kind of a no-brainer. And the other piece was if employees have to personally contact their supervisor to take a day, they're less likely to take as many days. I found no difference in the research between defined benefit plans like what we have now and a PTO. So that was a quantitative research study between defined and PTO. Found no difference between the amount of leave people took. The difference was how many days people were given.
And what year did you do that?
2003 to 2006, so it's a little dated. But there are a couple people that have followed up on that study.
Other general thoughts on
Culture has.
the topic? We'll let that rest for tonight. Anything? We'll be thinking about that, and again, it's something you can just bounce some questions off of your members of your group, and that's not, to me, not nearly as time sensitive as the calendar. I think we need to, that needs to be our primary focus till we get something figured out on that, and we can bring this back. The other item that we added to the agenda was whether this should be a district versus a board committee. General, it's interesting that the media is not here tonight. I don't know if their feelings were hurt or not. No intention to hurt anybody's
They're
feelings.
changing guard a lot. We've lost
Yeah.
some reporters and they're,
Uh-huh.
new ones coming in, maybe they haven't figured out they can, the new ones, the newbies.
I'll tell you my personal bias with this, and then you guys can tell me what you think. I don't like having the news media here because I think it inhibits a real genuine discussion. Because too often what happens, whether it's, and I'm not saying it's ill-intentioned, but something will end up from this meeting that's strictly a very early stages of discussion topic, and it ends up in the paper. And when people see things in the paper, they think, this is it, this is what a done deal. And that creates a lot of problems in terms of communication and bad information being out there. So I would very much like to see this become an administrative committee. And again, like I said, that's my personal bias. What do the rest of you think?
Would, by changing this to an administrative committee, does that then, and I'm just trying to think hypothetically here because I want to know like the longevity of this committee and the intent of this, does that or would that give the administration, whoever that may be in the future, the ability to nix the committee? Or would it have to be approved by the board to get rid of the committee?
This committee, Dr. Van Zyl, you may need to help me on this. This committee exists under an AP, an administrative procedure, which does not have to be board approved. Now, this particular one was.
Okay.
So an AP can go away anytime that the administration decides to. If something is not an administrative procedure, like it's in regular policy, then that would require board action. Dr. Van Zyl, is there anything you want to add on that?
That's correct.
Did that answer your
So
question?
this can be disbanded by administration at any time,
Yes.
Even the way it is now.
Even though it is.
even the way it is now? Okay.
Yep, that's what makes an AP different from the regular policies.
Well, that, I was just curious with because I do remember that the AP had been approved by the board, which apparently means nothing other than they saw it.
I think it was more of a, well, you were here, Tammy, what was it?
Yeah, it was more of the fact that some board members wanted it, and we didn't saw the importance of everybody coming to the table, even though we're not everybody yet.
Find some way to do it.
So the board took the lead in making sure this committee was established so that we could do the good things we did the first few years that were very important at that time and hopefully continue to be the advisement group. And so I think the couple of us just insisted that it be board approved, kind of as a, I don't know what you would call
Stamp of
that.
approval.
Just kind of as a statement, yeah, stamp of approval and a statement to the administration at the time that this was important, and would you agree if we wanted this committee to be there? So it was more in.
Looking for some way for the staff to be able to consistently know what was going on directly and be able to give feedback directly. In a way that wouldn't be
Does that
threatening.
make sense,
Everyone was
Eric?
here.
Well, I'm just glad for that clarification now. So it really doesn't matter. The only thing that changes is the publicness
Aspect of
of
publicity
this.
of it.
That's it.
Publicity.
Yeah.
If
But
it-
we will, and I believe that I believe that we're all on the same page, correct me if I'm wrong, that we do still want this documented with our videographer. Is that correct?
Our own video.
Our own?
Our own.
The district.
Yes.
The district
That's
videographer.
this, right here, yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say that that's the case either, because all you're doing is putting it on YouTube and the news can go out there, grab hold of it, use it however they want anyway.
Yep, I guess,
I think
No,
in
that'll-
place
that'll
of
be
the
a further
video is
discussion.
the thought that the.
I don't agree.
Unless it's
Summary will go.
unless it's a transcript,
I was gonna say, I wouldn't agree with that.
The only issue that you have, either way, anybody can attend that's a staff member and sit on the periphery of the group. So if anybody, if the agendas go out and they see that there's something that they want to be involved in, they have the opportunity to be involved in it. That's the same way it is now, same way it would continue to be. Just by limiting the video cameras from the newspaper is one thing, but they still have the opportunity if it's, because the way we process it now, it just goes on YouTube, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So they could go out and grab a hold of that and use it however they chose to.
Does it have to be done on YouTube?
Well, that was just the easiest way to get it to you guys, to send it out, let you know, hey, you know, I had a meeting, you know, check out this video, and we could probably try to make like a private link or something like that, or just make it, you know, where staff members might have to.
On our
Go through
website,
staff.
staff have to
like
log
a
in,
portal or
yeah.
something Where they have to type in their, you know.
There's a section in Office 365 that's more or less, you could call it a private YouTube. that You can
Okay.
set group memberships on.
Yeah, so that might be something we would have to look at.
Let our tech folks take a look at it. And I would rather have it be something where staff has to log onto it and have access than it can just be open for the media to go and do, like Brian was saying, pick a piece out of it and say, well, hey, this is what they talked about, and so let me write a news article on it. We get enough of that the way it is without adding fuel to the fire.
So some of you on this half of the table, middle and this side have been doing most of the talking. What do you guys think about board committee versus administrative? Or does it make even any difference to you?
No, I agreed with what Eric had said. I would just as soon not have the outside cameras on.
Okay. Kate, what do you think?
Same.
Kelly?
Yeah, I agree.
I think it would alleviate a lot of confusion and a lot of confusion for people addressing issues with you directly with the media, so,
And I think we'd be able to do more purposeful work while we're here without worrying that something's going to be misconstrued that we say.
I know I spend a lot of time worrying about what my hair looks like.
You know how you are.
So vain.
Well, if you would
Such
give
a
him
diva.
some tips, he wouldn't have to work so hard.
All right, well, I think we're at kind of a normal breaking point here. I think we'll go ahead and close shop for the day. Be thinking about, like I said, I think our primary objective next time needs to be to decide when does semester one end? Is it before Christmas or after? And then that'll allow us, once we know that, the rest of it will fall in place a little easier, I think. So talk to you folks, come back, we'll make that our primary agenda item, and then we can talk some more about the calendars after we get that decided. Between now and then, if you have things you'd like to put on the agenda, email them to me, and we can build things that way.
Dr. Kraus, I would suggest putting the PTO versus EL on that list of future topics, because I think that's something that probably needs to be talked about.
Yeah, and I made what I think was a pretty comprehensive list of what you guys were suggesting. I'll try and get that typed up and send it out to you, the topics that we talked about. Where did I write it?
Dr. Norman, did you say in your dissertation that it did affect the number of,
The number of days they were given affected
but
more.
did you say also that people were being required to communicate with their direct supervisor did limit the days?
I didn't do that in my research, but in my lit review found that that decreased teacher absenteeism by having to make a direct report.
Okay.
So picking up the phone and calling or texting, which we didn't do texting 10 years ago, but
Smoke signals.
but it was, hey.
That was for me.
Okay, I was just curious about that. I was interested as I'm starting to ponder different
Yeah.
scenarios that could be.
Bridget did send me some information, if I can get it pulled up here, I'd be happy to share it. She was talking about how many views for our YouTube, and it is way too small.
Yeah, she did send me the same.
Did she send it? So the August, our last meeting had 74 views on YouTube. The April one had 110.
So it would be good to make a way for teachers to be able to log on
Yeah.
to see it, because that's a chunk of people.
I mean, proportionally, it's very small, but that doesn't surprise me.
No.
But that's still 74 to 100 people that are interested and engaged, want to be engaged in the process, so I agree with you.
Dr. Kraus, do you want us to keep our name tags?
If you want to keep them, that would be fine. If you want me to keep them, I can do that. Depends on the
Yes, because I had lost the first one.
Late. You hold on to this for me, please?
Sure. All right, thank you very much. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand. Go home, have a nice afternoon.